So we're excited, obviously, for this week. Let me go ahead and make sure. I think I hit record, but let's just, we're good. All right, perfect. So hit record. We've got one more ATUG coming up in December. It is not the third Thursday. That would be kind of getting pretty late into December. So because we don't do one in November with Thanksgiving and so forth, we've gone ahead and kind of brought the December one forward. So that'll be December 10th. So the second Thursday.
And this one will be entertaining. I mean, we've got Will Strauss, who's hilarious, and Ben Jones, who is the data literacy person, I don't know, of our generation, of all time. And does he have we need to give him a label for that.
Mr. Data Literacy for sure. Mm-hmm. He runs dataliteracy.com. If that doesn't sound familiar, but Ben Jones's name sounds familiar, Ben is also the former kind of owner of Tableau Public, and was that for a really long time. So both Anna and I have known Ben for a good long while. Great guy.
I think he's doing us a big favor for jumping in for us, because he's like, I'm normally not doing these public conversations, but I'll do it for you guys in Atlanta. So
exactly,
this is not miss.
Yeah, exactly. He's a good dude, but he also recognizes the high quality Tableau user group that we have down here in the South. So super excited about that. So definitely put that on your calendar. And that QR code will actually take you to Karen's Tableau dashboard that has all this information. You can go back and watch previous episodes that you may have missed. So a bunch of good stuff there. Also the LinkedIn link, Twitter link, Slack link, the YouTube videos, man, everything's up there. So that is your hub for all things ATUG. And Anna, why don't you tell the good folks, if they're not already on the ATL Tug Slack, how they can join?
Well, you should be able to link it there from her QR code, right?
Yep. So the QR code will take you right there, so you can hop onto it. And then Karen's link that she's got up into the into that dashboard. So
I was trying to get linked there while you asked me that to get to send the link in chat, and I'm a little slow on that one.
There it is. All sorts of good ways to connect. So definitely check us out. Love to connect if we can be helpful or you have any questions. There's so many great channels up on Slack. I know folks have found jobs through Slack at this point. Questions are getting answered. So just a lot of good stuff. So yeah, definitely check it out. Cool. All right, Anna, are you ready to get into it?
Yeah, let's talk about Tableau conference-ish.
Let's talk about it.
This was the first virtual conference I've ever attended. This year has been full of them. So my recommendation, everyone, was as well as Tableau pulled this off. I feel free to complain about any of it, so we don't go full virtual for the rest of the years, because I do miss regular Tableau conference, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Totally with you.
There were a lot of different ways to meet up with people virtually, and it felt like, honestly, it felt like we were together in a way. We had brain dates, we had community conversations and Zoom and in other platforms while we watched conference. Did you watch any with anyone? Did you watch any of the sessions while you were on Zoom with other people?
We did. The Iron Viz was our big one. So I think there may even be a picture of well, I don't know if it was any of these, but yeah, we did the Iron Viz kind of together and kind of talking through it while we were watching everybody go. That was pretty fun.
Yeah, we had a group, and actually there's a session that we recommend in here in the slides, and I'll talk about it later, but there was a group of us watching the session with the people who actually did the session and talking through it, which was real fun, because a lot of the sessions were pre-recorded, obviously. And it made it even more interesting, because we could ask questions real time. Hey, well, why did you do this? So that was fun. It made it different, but it was fun.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a couple of things that we have traditionally done. we did a devotion each morning, which is something we've done in the past. So that was kind of cool to get together with some folks there. And I know you did a couple happy hour type of things. I think you were part of the Iron Viz kind of watching party. I think there were about
Yeah.
75 people kind of all doing the Iron Viz watch party, which was, I mean, that was kind of fun. So the comments were fun and hilarious and cheering for different people and so forth. So, and I think I did a brain date, which was cool. Got to connect with somebody I'd never met about doing some HR analytics. So hopefully that was helpful to them. But
Oh yeah,
any
there were some
brain dates you did that were super
conversations.
fun?
Yeah, there were some just great conversations, helping each other out through our processes too, because we're all working on some project, usually having to do with Tableau. I mean, I instruct Tableau, but I also work on some projects here and there. And getting to sit down and have these conversations, you hear where other people's pain points are and where they found the like strategies to relieve them. And oh, hey, that's a great idea. I can apply it to this. So not only was it a way to connect and have community, but you can take what you got in conversation and in sessions and just immediately apply it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the things, in addition to all the community stuff and being with people that everybody loves about Tableau Conference are the keynotes and in particular devs on stage. Devs on stage is a big one because you get to kind of see what's in the roadmap that Tableau's going to be releasing. What can you kind of get excited about? What's that feature that you've been wanting for the past 6 years that is now definitely going to happen? I can remember in the past hearing about things like viz and tooltips and kind of wondering when that was going to come to fruition, and things like dynamic parameters and all those different things in the middle of devs on stage. And so hopefully many of you got to watch it, but for those of you who have not seen things, so the new world was called Devs at Desks instead of Devs on Stage. So they kind of had some fun with that. Talked about a number of things that were really pretty interesting. So just want to talk through a handful of those, give you a heads up, show you a couple of videos, just kind of quick clips on some of the things that they were talking about that we felt like were really interesting. But the first one to kind of talk about here is just the ability for Tableau to engage with kind of webhooks and stuff like that into the places that you're already getting your messaging. So things like Slack, I imagine Microsoft Teams and stuff like that will be kind of in the making.
Alexa.
But yeah, Alexa will be awesome, right? Alexa, good morning, Nelson. Your Tableau dashboard has filled up.
They demoed one with Alexa at one point. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I look forward to Ask Data through Alexa. I think that's been built, but it's all hacky. But anyway, I'll be looking forward to that one when that shows up. So, but the Slack integration and the ability for people to really just be, for the analytics to be in your workflow. I think that's the biggest piece now, is that we want the data to kind of find us at just the right moment. And so, in the places that we already are, rather than having to go to the data, you kind of think that the two terms that we talk about here are push versus pull. So if I have to go to it, I have to kind of pull it to me. It's kind of, I'm taking an action to go get the information, so I'm pulling the insight to me. In this case, what's happening here is conceptually, Tableau is going to push me an insight in an automated way, or I can kind of even engage it and kind of ask about, hey, what's the answer to this? So excited to see kind of where they take this. I think this will be an exciting direction, and certainly one that is, I think bigger things are coming. So another one that, another one that is really interesting is the ability to start to create things called collections. So this is just kind of say, hey, maybe it's in a couple of different workbooks, but there's a number I need for this meeting, and like I've got this meeting where we walk through a bunch of different things, and it's in this workbook, and there's 2 things from this workbook, and there's 1 metric from over here, and there's a data source over here, and I don't necessarily want to go get screenshots. I want those things to kind of update, but conceptually speaking, I want to kind of have it all in one place. And so I was excited to see that this kind of finally has come to fruition, and the term they're using for it's called a collection.
And Nelson, I asked you this offline, but I thought I'd ask this for everybody. I said, what do you think this means for a network or a Tableau administrator? Like extra work? Is this going to be harder on them? What do you think?
Yeah, I think in the short term, I think this is great. I think I think the long term, and I'll jump to the next one too, Anna, because I think they're kind of tied together. But with collections and personal spaces, where I think this is all going is that I can envision in some number of years, I kind of said, 3, 4, 5 years, that Tableau Desktop could disappear. I'm not saying it will, and that's certainly, Francois didn't tell me that by any stretch, but I'm thinking that in the long term, one of the big points that they made about what's going on right now is that they're finally getting to almost basically full parity. So if you can do it in Tableau Desktop, you can now do it on in the web authoring on Tableau Server. Everything including Tableau Prep and stuff like that. And so where I think this is all going is, if I'm going to do all of my development potentially up on Tableau Server, Tableau Online, I need a place where I can kind of house stuff that's not ready for prime time, right? The stuff that I'm developing and so forth. So you get things like personal spaces, you get things like collections, where it's like, hey, I myself get to kind of pick the content. It's the Tableau Server administrator kind of is going to focus on things that are going to be more production, and I'm going to focus on things that are more just kind of dev or test in my own way. And so I think that's where a lot of this is coming from. And then again, even in the same way, things that, one thing that they landed already in the newest version of Tableau Server is shared with me. So it's like in the same way that if I get a PowerPoint, this PowerPoint is one that we share with each other, right? So I can kind of go and say, hey, where are the PowerPoints that have been shared with me? It's kind of a separate thing that Microsoft has. It's like, hey, here are the ones that have been shared with you. These are the vizzes or the metrics or whatever it's like that have been shared with you, and they're kind of ordered chronologically. You can kind of pin different things and stuff like that. So it makes it so that if somebody shares something with you, it kind of becomes its own little spot that you can kind of jump to really rapidly. So
I love that, because you're not now digging through emails and trying, where is that thing? I know I saw this one thing somewhere. Who sent that to me? This is fantastic. It's almost like a Pinterest board.
Yeah. And so I'm pumped about this, because I definitely see all these things are leading in a direction where more and more and more development is going to occur online. And let's think about that too, right? Directionally, what we see from the data is that more and more of the data is going to be online. You think about things like Snowflake and kind of cloud data warehouses and stuff like that. That's going to become much more common. We're already seeing a migration from a lot of certainly the big organizations here in Atlanta, going from kind of having something on premise to many of them kind of making the choice to put the data up into a public cloud, whether that be AWS, Azure, Google, Snowflake, etc. So the data is already in the cloud. So if the data is already in the cloud that I need to work with, then why not let's do the development in the cloud as well, right? So again, I'm not saying that's happening tomorrow, but I do see a direction here that I think Tableau is very keen to. And I think they're making a good move. Yep. And I mean, Salesforce being one of the very first and strongest, frankly, cloud platforms that's out there, this direction makes a ton of sense.
It does.
So,
it does.
Yeah.
Whether or not we like it.
Exactly. Right. I think there's definitely use cases for Tableau Desktop existing for a long time. But, it may not be, it may not exist forever. That's one of those things that we'll continue to keep an eye on.
I keep thinking about developing when I'm on an airplane. Like, what am I going to do if it's in the cloud? I mean, I like my desktop because it's nice and right here, and I don't have to deal with Wi-Fi. And so that's always my argument right there.
Nathan said, amen, Anna. Yeah, I think the counter argument there is
down and your power is out, you can still Tableau until your
heart's content.
Your laptop dies.
Yeah. I mean, you still have an option, I'm sure, to be able to take extracts, right? So, but yeah, it would be interesting. Yeah. I don't know. It's fascinating. I don't know. Because as soon as I said extract, I was like, well, that would mean it would be on my computer, but then the cloud couldn't see it.
Still needs the development.
Exactly. So I don't have the development arm at that point. Yeah. So Interesting. Very, very interesting. So yeah, so this is happening. Another thing that they talked about was autosave. So
I love that you added this first.
right. Well, so the prepper here is for the longest time, and I think everybody probably remembers, if you've been around Tableau for a while, you remember the many, many days and years that Tableau did not have autosave. And I remember when I was about a week into working at my previous consulting firm, I had done a bunch of work, and then Tableau crashed and I lost all of it. And I literally was just like, I'm never going to let this happen again. Right. Period in the story. And so over the next day or two, I think I came up with a way to do autosave by using auto hotkey that would basically press Control S every 2 minutes or something like that, whatever I set it to, as long as Tableau was the window that was open. So in the same way, again, because if everything goes onto the web, you need the same thing. Maybe you close the window accidentally, right? That would be terrible. Or your browser shuts down or something like that. You need to have that autosave, right? So one of the things that we heard from Ellie was that you're going to have this functionality. So I'm going to play this for everybody real quick.
Now I also need to make a few quick changes to this very popular, already published dashboard. One last change, I'm going to add marks to labels, one of the great new analytical features we added last year, and it looks great. It looks perfect. It's exactly the way I want. Oops, I accidentally closed the tab and I've lost all my work. That's the worst. But if this happens to you, never fear, we've got you. We're adding autosave to Tableau. If I refresh the page, I'll now see draft. I can go back to where I was or discard the changes. Autosave in Tableau, because we all deserve a second chance.
There you go.
A complete end-to-end browser experience requires advanced analytical features like.
All right, so excited about that. Again, I think as there's more and more things happening that are going to happen in the web experience.
Actions and sets.
There we go. I think that'll be really, really big. So again, I think the goal is just a true parity of what you have in the desktop experience coming to the web. So just excited about all that. Okay, a couple more that we were particularly pumped about. So one of the things that I know from you mentioned kind of the administration side. When we think about doing Tableau development and kind of working with governance and the data admin teams at a lot of organizations, they're like, all right, talk about row level security. And it's like, well, so Tableau's got it. There's a couple of tricky things, and you kind of explain some of those things. What I think is exciting here is that now you can publish a data source, and at the data source level, the data governance team can control that row level security piece. And so you don't have to make sure, hey, did you do it all the right way? Did you make sure you did all the permissioning the right way and stuff like that? This seems like it's going to be a much more robust way of doing row level security on different data sources. And I know there's a ton of organizations out there that have kind of come up with different hacks, where they're doing SQL injection, doing live queries against their database so that they can get the row level security that they want. But I'm excited about this because I think this will be super helpful. It definitely makes Tableau more robust. And if you can't see that particularly well, these are the types of ways that you can go about it. So you have the ability to understand, the different tables that you're looking at and the different ways that you would kind of classify those tables and stuff like that. And so you kind of call, to name different fields in different ways so that the alignment will work well. And so, again, excited about that. Is member of looks like it's still going to be string literals, but things like full name can be dynamic. So that should work well. So excited about that. Cool. All right. Another one from a data governance perspective is data quality warnings. And again, I think this is one where the enterprise data governance teams at a lot of organizations are going to be super pumped because more and more we're seeing that organizations are leveraging things like data catalogs. You're leveraging things like Tableau data catalog. Tableau catalog. And so, it gives you a sense of, hey, we expected this table to update, that didn't happen. And so you need to know that this data is stale. But unless you're doing something very special in order to plan for that, it's tough to convey that information to the end user. And so one of the things I'm excited about is to see how Tableau is doing a bunch more integration with things like Elation, things like Alteryx Connect and stuff like that. And then, Tableau Prep with Prep Conductor and so forth. All those different tools have the ability to integrate into the Tableau data management add-in. And so you get these data quality warnings. And I think this is super helpful for, especially if you're making kind of key decisions off of data. You want to be able to have confidence that the data is going to be fresh and accurate and so forth. So I'll show you guys this one as well.
Introducing automated data quality warnings. Let me show you. At the top of the Tableau catalog, I can go ahead and add a refresh monitor. We'll select Prep Flow Monitoring, select the type of data quality warning, and paste in the message I'd like my users to see. And now when this flow fails, a data quality warning will be generated automatically. Just like everything else in the catalog, these automatically generated data quality warnings flow all the way to visits and dashboards so all users can see them. For example, take a look at...
Real quick, I just want to point out one of the things that I think is cool is, go away, sorry. So if you look over here, you can see this table actually feeds 93 different workbooks. And I think that's the power of this. So if this table goes down, you want to be able to scale the notification of that to all those different workbooks. So I'm going to hit play. You guys can see that.
So all users can
right
see
here.
them. For example, take a look at this dashboard. Here is the data quality warning that tells me there's a problem I need to pay attention to. And from data details, we can see the warning. It's an extract refresh warning. With features like automated data quality warnings, Tableau Catalog embeds trust and visibility into every layer, making data management easier than ever. But there's another element to trust. Sensitive data is everywhere.
All right. Boom. So a bunch of really good stuff in that data governance space. So super excited about all those different pieces. A couple other ones I thought were really good, and I'll go quick as we go through the last few of these. But Tableau Prep coming to the browser again. I think the goal is to get to full parity in here. Obviously, the immediate question is like, well, what do I do if I've got like an Excel file or a CSV or something like that that's on my laptop? I believe you'll just kind of be able to drag and drop that onto the screen, and that'll become a data source for you. So, so some really cool stuff happening there for sure. And then the ability to write back to different databases, I think, has shown up as well. And then map layers was a really cool one too. I, for one, have had multiple use cases where I needed like 3, 4, 5 layers on the mapping side. And of course, you can only do kind of a dual access to this point, right? Mm-hmm. But Tableau has now given us the ability to add layer after layer after layer in the geospatial analysis space. And I think that's going to be phenomenal. So check this out.
Now, when I'm not looking at avocado prices, I inspect the local housing market, since my lease is up this coming April. Here's a map of Seattle, broken down by zip code and colored by average monthly rent. I want to bring in more information into this view, but layering multiple location data is not possible in Tableau. Until today, introducing map layers. You can now layer as many geometries as you want in the same view. I cannot wait to show you. Let's bring in house locations to see some of the properties I'm interested in. I'll drag the pill in the view and see a brand new layer drop zone. I release my pill and boom, Tableau just created 2 layers, each with their own marks cards. Now let's disaggregate by address, change our mark type, change our color, our border, and our size. And you know what? Let's also rename our layer, easily enough. Now adding a third layer is drag and drop easy. And as a proper Seattleite, I cannot pick a home without considering proximity to coffee. So let's bring in store ID and coffee shop locations into the view, change our mark type, color, and resize. Just like that, we build a map with 3 layers. The rainy Seattle sky's the limit. Now, map layers are not only easily additive, but also intuitively configurable. For instance, interacting with marks across layers can be very distracting. But with map layers, we can disable selection with this new option. Now, the zip code layer is static, yet it continues to update as I change encodings directly from the marks card. And check this out. Currently, coffee shop locations are layered on top of house marks and hide some houses near downtown. Well, map layers can fix this too. We can now reorder our layers and bring coffee shops down. Now, watch the viz as I release. Here we go. Everything is now in place and clearly visible. But wait a minute. I want to get the most bang for my buck. So I want to compare individual home prices to zip code averages. Now this requires level of detail expressions, also known as LODs.
So as he was about to get to, there's a new easy LOD calculation, and Anna, you and I were chatting about this one too. It seems like kind of by default what it's going to do is a fixed LOD calc, but definitely check it out. It's going to be interesting to see, if LODs are something that you haven't really approached in the past. This will definitely help you get started. I think it's a
what
good
it looks
starting
like
point.
Definitely a good starting point. You still have to know what you're calculating, especially with reference to which LOD you need. Like you said, it looks like it's a fix, but it sets up the syntax for you, and you control select the dimensions and the measure you want. So then automatically you can choose your LOD. But it is one of those things you still need to know what you're calculating and what aggregation as well. So it's not going to read your mind.
One day.
Maybe.
All right. Maybe. Scary, right? And the last one I think we're going to talk about is just, there's a big shift to the web. We already talked about that. The other big shift, I think, is just the embrace, obviously, Tableau being bought by Salesforce back in June of 2019. You can see a ton of integration that's now happened. So things like Einstein Analytics, getting brought into Tableau, being able to do a bunch of modeling and stuff like that, kind of codeless and whatnot. Similar to the way that you can do things with TabPy and R, you can begin to leverage Einstein Analytics to do different predictions and modeling and forecasting and whatnot.
Now, if you know me, I'm always hesitant with these predictive models, and we're not working with clean data. We're dealing with sample sizes too small. So, of course, I'm going to be a little apprehensive.
Yeah.
But I would say, though, this is, in my opinion, this is how Salesforce is actually trying to get their consumers, the people that already consume Salesforce, to come over to the Tableau side. I think this is their way of opening that door to Tableau for their Salesforce customers, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. And I think it's, it'll be interesting to see as people start to actually use it, what the feedback is, how good it is. I think the one thing to be cognizant of for all of us is we start talking about doing analytic models and predictions and whatnot. Typically, you have to structure the data in some very specific ways in order to create the test that you want to create for the analytic model. If it gives you some feedback, but it's not applicable and it doesn't apply to the way that you can actually implement something, then the insight's not very valuable. So we'll see how it goes. I did go and pull this information because, one of those questions like, wow, that sounds cool. How much is that going to cost? And so the prediction piece, on top of the Salesforce stuff that you've got is kind of a $75 a month. And then full Tableau CRM It goes up to $150 per month per user. So not cheap, but there's a ton of value in your data. Can be very, very useful. So excited to see whoever gets to start building on that. So now everybody's favorite.
Yeah, this is the big part. This is the exciting part.
And tell us about it.
Oh yeah. So this is where the energy is. If you've ever been to Tableau conference too, you go in there and it's like this big stage, it's dark, they're flashing lights, people have glow sticks I mean, oh my gosh, it's incredible. I can't even describe. And so they did it, obviously in our conference-ish, it was online, but they still did a great job creating the suspense that we have when they're creating these visualizations. Now, we probably should explain this because I would assume a lot of people here don't know what Iron Viz really is. I mean, if you've seen Iron Chef, you can kind of get an idea. But, I know we have folks here that are listening who have seen this in person, but there's probably people who are going, what's Iron Viz? Explain it to me. Because my first time at conference, I was saying the same thing. Everyone keeps talking about Iron Viz, but nobody explained to me. So correct me if I'm wrong, Nelson. Pretty much they all get a data set and they have a certain amount of time to figure out what questions they want to answer and the story they want to tell in this data set. At conference, I believe they get it on Monday. And honestly, I think they're working the whole time during conference in set times to try to figure out what they're going to do. I don't know how it works this time, but when we actually watch Iron Viz, they already have worked out in their head what they're going to do. They have 20 minutes to build it. Yep. And because they have 20 minutes to build it, when you watch this, you see some of the craziest shortcuts you've never seen before. Like, wait, you can do that in Tableau? Wait, what? Nelson, like last year, was it Lindsay Poulter who was dragging and dropping her calculations right into pills? I mean, it was
exactly
that. So you could watch them do this. And of course you can go online and see the whole thing, but all the suspense, I'm hoping I'm creating the same feeling of suspense right now while I'm talking about it, because I still haven't told you who won. So we're watching this and then they go to each person and each person describes and explains. We should have pulled a video for a couple of these because they were great, but y'all can go online and see this. And they tell what the story is and what they were looking at. And what I loved about this year is in most years they all have a different story, but these seem like three completely different stories using the same data about air quality. Well, needless to say, I don't know, do you want to tell them who won? I mean, it is a friend of ATUG that won, and I saw him on here a second ago. I don't see his name on the list anymore.
Do you see him?
Yeah, he's not on right now, but he was earlier. And you wanna.
So yeah. Congratulations to Mr. Christian Felix. Woo! For the air we breathe.
It was incredible too. I loved his explanation and where he was going with it and how he came up with his story. They do judge on not just obviously a beautiful visualization, but the story behind it and the analytics piece as well, and how well you can analyze the data to tell the story. So
absolutely,
it was incredible.
Yep, I think Tableau did a great job kind of making lemonade out of lemons with Iron Viz. If you've ever seen Iron Chef, at 1 a.m. in the morning on the Food Network, same concept there. That's the I think the genesis of Iron Viz. But Anna, why don't you talk us through a couple of these other tips?
Oh yeah, so a couple recommendations. We had a few of these that we wanted to tell you all about. Speed tipping is always great. There's 2 sets of speed tips for this year, so you can go online and see these. And this year it was Jeffrey Schaefer and Lorna Brown, and they're both Zen masters. And there are some incredible tips, things that you're like, Tableau, what? I didn't know you could do that. So I chose just one clip here that I thought it's not a typical Tableau tip. Okay. You're not usually going to see a Tableau tip that looks like a Nintendo hack from the 90s, like where that was it up, down, down, left, right. That's what this looks like. But I thought I'd share this to everyone and go, so you can just have your mind blown too. I just started laughing. Like, I can't believe you can do this in Tableau. But if anyone's ever had that issue, and I think we all have, where you're trying to get rid of the ABCs in the column, you just want a blank column. And there's, he actually gave before this particular tip, 8 other examples of things, hacks, so you can get rid of that column or at least blank it out. This one took the cake. So if you want to roll it.
I don't really know what to call this. This is, a cheat code in Tableau, or, I don't know, a kill code in a video game or something, but I'm going to use the control key to size the column. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to size this ABC column out 3 times. 1, 2, 3. We're going to make it really big by doing that 3 times out. Then we're going to drag the size of the column to be as narrow as possible. And then I'm going to control key left arrow to make it smaller 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the column is gone. No ABC column. It's not there. You can't select the marks, and you just have a normal 2-column view here. If you want to get that back, that's very important. Because you can't right click, and you can't, there's no column to make wider. You're going to go to Format, and down under Format, you're going to go down to Cell Size, and your cell size, click on Text Cell, and it will set all of your cells back, and you have your default back to your ABC. I have a blog post on how to do this, and it has a bunch of check marks for you to tell you what works and what doesn't work. So be sure to check out this blog post for further information on these techniques.
God bless.
When I teach
Jeffrey
Tableau,
Safer.
that's one question that always comes up. People always want to do that because I think a lot of people just want to build text tables in Tableau. I mean, it just happens. So I get that question a lot, and I can't wait to show this one to somebody, and they're going to go, wait, what?
That was awesome.
We also had, and we need to get to the next part here, so let's go through this faster. So we had a great conversation here. We listened to, and you can go find this session with Chantilly Jagernoth. She's a Zen master, and she also runs Millennials in Data. And she had this conversation with Wade Davis, who's the VP of Inclusion at Netflix, about diversity in data. So working with people within the organization and using, including that conversation of diversity. This was the session I was alluding to earlier. That was a fantastic session about looking at the dashboard, but it was pre-recorded. So we got to sit in a Zoom session, a few of us with, there was like about 6 or 5 of us in there with Katie and Mark when they went through this. And we're going, wait. That was really cool. This session is fantastic. Why this session for me was, important. It wasn't just how to build a dashboard. It's Mark's ability to ask questions and how he took the data he looked at and he goes, well, let me ask the next question to get to the next answer in the dashboard. And that's really what a lot of data is, right? Is how do you ask the right question? And so this was a fantastic session on not just building a dashboard, but how to use the dashboard to answer the questions that people have top of mind.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think Katie, this looks familiar from some of the stuff that Katie showed us, I think a few months back. So yet another friend of the ATEC family. So excited about that.
Oh yeah, Katie is phenomenal. And then we talked earlier about Ben Jones. He's going to be here next month. Here virtually. Ben is the owner and CEO of dataliteracy.com. He left Tableau and opened up data literacy because it's a passion of his heart. And he's written books on data literacy, and he does a great job of explaining, and he doesn't make it over your head. He really simplifies the process of understanding how to really read and interpret charts. And so this was a great session that actually ended with, and you can flip to the next slide, which after that session, they had a panel discussing data literacy in different parts of an organization, which include a data culture. And so this was a great setup for Tableau as they're going into this next important part of their journey into data literacy, because Tableau is now, and you can switch to the next slide there, Tableau is now offering, and I'm pulling up my data literacy for all. And data literacy for all, you can go online and you have e-learning for your introduction to just like, hey, what's some functional data literacy I need, to those statistical analysis pieces. People are always, I have a background with statistics, and people are always asking me, okay, like when do I use this and this? It does a great job of explaining what each piece is for and simplifying it, and then bringing it back to reading charts and using relevant data. They go all the way to understanding distributions, variation, which is understanding variation, of course, is key for understanding statistics and just reading data and interpret it. And then they get into some like correlation and relationships. So if you are interested in pursuing any more a culture of data literacy, this is a great jumping off point for either you or your team to just go find this e-learning. And I'm going to put into the chat this link here. So I get excited about data literacy if you didn't notice.
Yeah, I think the conference, I think, we kind of said it was solid. I think they did a great job with what they had to do. Obviously, nobody's preferred method of going through it, but I think there were some really great parts. One of the coolest things that I think we saw was the Tableau public Viz Gallery. So this is still out there. Really encourage y'all to check out vizgallery.tableaupublic.com. You actually got a sense that you could be literally walking around in this virtual room and seeing, I think there were like 41 different visualizations from different Tableau public authors.
And the music made you just feel, you could feel emotion when you're looking at it. They also did a good job of including a lot of female authors. If you noticed that, it was a great way of bringing in more of a female touch to some of these that we normally see a lot of males in the data community. So I thought that he did a good job.
There you go. Awesome. So that is, ladies and gentlemen, your Tableau conference-ish recap. So anything you saw today that you want more information on, just go hit the Google and see what's going on. Tons and tons of good stuff out there. All those sessions will be up on the internet forever. So excited about that. And with that, we are going to hand it over to the professor, Doc Kevin Lee Elder. Doc, unmute yourself. Give us a shout out. What's going on, buddy?
Right. Excuse me. I hope I'm unmuted there.
You're good,
I had heard something where they had said that only until next month we're going to be able to view the session. So I hope somebody finds that out, that they're not going to cut us off that fast. But that's something I had heard at one point.
Interesting. I hadn't heard that.
Yeah.
Well, don't listen
so anyway,
to me.
I asked these guys to give me a short time here just to introduce you guys to the Viz for Social Good. If you've never heard of it before, I'm the Atlanta chapter lead for the Viz for Social Good. If you never heard that before, I dropped a link into the chat session for you with all kinds of information about us. But Data Chloe started it about 4 or 5 years ago. We've done a lot of projects for not-for-profits and charities all around the world. And it's a really great organization and a chance for folks to use your data skills to give back to the community. And so one of the things that I would like to try and do is link up students with you all and do some brainstorming sessions about the different projects. So we're going to give it a try for our next project. Our next project, we're actually going to do an internal project. We recently did a project for Academics Without Borders. And when we were doing that, I thought, everybody's creating these great visits for them. I thought we need to do the same thing for us. Boom, here we go. I'm letting the cat out of the bag. We'll officially announce it on November 8th, but we are going to do the next project, seeing how you all can take the data for Viz for Social Good and help us create a better interface so you guys can see what the projects are and join and interact and do things. And so I'm going to have a couple of sessions on Monday, November 9th, 1 p.m. and 2 p.m. If y'all want to come and interact with my students and help brainstorm with them, here's some ideas. Why don't you guys go do this? Then my students are going to go off and see what they can create as volunteers for the Viz for Social Good. So definitely contact me if you have any interest in that at all. And if anybody has a local Atlanta charity, I'd love to have an Atlanta charity on our list for 2021. So it'd be great.
Yeah, Doc, that's awesome.
That you think might be good for us to lend our skills to, let me know.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Time. Normally I go for 50 minutes, so thanks.
No, Doc, really appreciate it, man. And one that comes to mind, we've done partnered with the Atlanta Community Food Bank in the past, so that may be one to connect with. So, but yeah, really appreciate you taking the reins on this, and love to hear what else the community is passionate about. So, cool.
Yep. So hope to see you on November 9th. Thanks, folks.
Thank you. All right. Nathan Settembrin, are you able to share your screen?
Sir, coming in hot. It's
There were
time to
so many
Kahoot.
topics. There were so many topics for the conference. We couldn't possibly get to all of them. So we've integrated them into Kahoot. So hopefully you were listening to some of these questions so you can answer correctly. But if you watched the conference, you know we had some pretty cool keynote speakers. So you might get these questions correct if you got those. So what you're going to need to do is go to kahoot.it on your browser, or you can have, if you have the Kahoot app on your phone, you can use that as your controller. But what you're going to need to do is choose a name that is appropriate, and you're going to be battling out for winner. I think, are we going for bragging rights today? Do we know?
That's a good question.
We'll have to, we'll get your name, whoever's the winner. So let us know, maybe chat us your email address, and we'll figure out what we're going to do there. But bragging rights are always good, right? So 8 questions. We're going to have to do this pretty quickly. Go ahead and sign in there. Have fun with it. Oh, sounds like we do have, again, always figuring out. There's a $25 gift certificate to the Tableau store on the line. Wow.
What can you get for $25 in the Tableau gift store?
I know I would get a new coffee mug because my dog broke my Tableau coffee mug. Yeah, he's big and he jumped up and thought there was something in it for him and he busted it on the ground.
You can buy a single pen.
Might be able to buy some stickers. A sticker, maybe.
All right. Come on, guys. You know you want to play. We're only, let's see, we got about a third of you signed up.
See the survivor. I like that.
This is not as creepy as the music was when we first started it. Maybe I can start
I think it was a little creepier. By the way, did you know that this is the first time we had a Zeta hurricane storm this early in the year? It's happened before, but it was December. That is trivia. This is pre-trivia trivia.
All right. $25 is on the line. Who's going to take it? Are we ready to go, Anna?
I think we should get rolling here. All
right, we're gonna get rolling.
You can jump in if you're jumping
3,
in. Just
2,
go ahead and jump in whenever.
Get your fingers ready. Speed counts towards the points. Question number 1. Who was the diamond sponsor of TC20? If you were paying attention at all.
We had a lot of commercials.
This is a bit of a gimme. But was it Elation?
Biz Jamas. It's Biz Jamas.
Alteryx? Was it Domo? Hello.
Well done.
It was
Look at that.
Snowflake. Nice. Most of you guys got that right. That was good. Domo.
That was a good.
Matthew D. Nelly D, where are you, man? All right. Question number 2. Which friend of ATUG won the 2020 title of Iron Biz Champion? Was it Christian Felix? Simon Beaumont, Alex Jones, Nelson Davis? Who was it?
Nelson, did you play?
Nelson, good job, buddy.
Play to win.
Way to win. It was, in fact, Christian Felix.
Some folks were paying attention.
It was so good, too.
So good.
He's a beast. All right, Matthew D, holding strong. Here we go. Question 3. What was the title of the winning Iron Biz dashboard by Christian Felix? Was it Would You Live There? Take My Breath Away, The Air We Breathe, or Just Breathe?
Nathan, these were good answers.
Every breath you take. I was trying to find more. Good job, guys. Wow.
Nice.
Man, we need harder questions. There's a couple coming that might trip you up. Matthew D, wow. Zeta Survivor, sneaking in at number 2. Emily has a streak. Which John Legend song has over 1.3 billion streams on Spotify? Is it All of Me, Wild, Beauty and the Beast, or Love Me Now?
For those wondering, he did give us music and a fireside chat during the Tableau conference.
Yes, All of Me. He has almost 10x the listens on All of Me versus any other song.
It's the only one I know, I think.
All of Me is pretty solid. C, big C, sneaking in.
Ooh, who's C?
All right, if you got a string that's dog, apple, butter, pumpkin latte, what's returned by split string -4?
I hope you didn't mind that I changed one of your answers, Nathan. You see it now?
Yeah.
I'm glad you got the joke.
Oh, now it's stuck in my head. Oh, pen, pineapple,
Apple pen.
I have a pen. I have an apple. Huh. Apple pen. Oh man, yeah. So if you've taken the Tableau certification to be a consultant, whatever it is, you've seen a question like this. But yeah, so split, you're looking for this delimiter, and you're returning the 4th one that it finds, the 4th member. And so in this case, it's a pumpkin. So we're splitting on hyphen, 1, 2, 3, 4, get pumpkin. There we go. Good job to the 13 of you. And C got the right answer. Good job. C, my power is back. Who's that? That's awesome. That is awesome. All right, question 6. Tableau Prep, the latest version coming out soon, will introduce what? Prep in the browser? Math layers, data literacy courses, LOD calculations.
Wow,
no votes for
surprised.
data literacy courses.
We tricked them. Yeah. It's so Tableau and Tableau Prep are 2 different products, even though owned by the same company. So it's Prep in the browser. Good job.
Yeah, so I had to Google this one, and I'm not going to lie, because this is in beta right now, right?
Yes. It's not out yet.
Yeah.
But they did say it was 2020.4. So
Prep in the browser.
I just took their word for it when I wrote that.
That's good, because I was trying to open a flow in 2020.3 yesterday, and it wouldn't even open it. So maybe it'll open it in the browser. So that'd be good.
Wow. I'm curious.
Prep is not my friend these days.
Rachel.
That's pretty cool.
She's
Rachel.
Read.
Rachel W. I know you. Good job. Here we go. True or false? Tableau now hosts online courses in data literacy. Have you been paying attention today? That's the question.
True. Yay.
Yay. All right. My power is back. Good job.
One more question. Anyone's game. Almost anyone.
All right. Nelly D, you're not allowed to win the $25. All right. Here we go. Final question. Lauren, please keep it down over there. Who told James Cameron his star alignment in the night sky was wrong in the movie Titanic? Was it Stephen Hawking, comic book guy, Neil deGrasse Tyson, or William Shatner?
This is one of our keynote speakers from Tableau-ish, or Tableau conference-ish. Yes, nice job, y'all. And I thought that was a pretty interesting trivia question about him.
That is, that's good. I'd never even heard of Neil deGrasse Tyson until like a few weeks
Really?
ago. Yeah. Who is he? Why is he famous?
He is a famous astrophysicist who also, well, let's see, what TV show has he worked on? Oh, my brain just went blank. He's worked on TV shows. He simplified someone's going to have to tell me what TV show I'm thinking of. Yeah, really, Nathan? Exactly, Anthony. Exactly.
Sorry.
Yeah, we're going to have to school you on the side here because we don't have a lot of time. But
All right, here we go. Sorry, I was just
find out who the winner is. There's
all right, third place, C. Second place, my power is back. Not an LED. Don't do it. Ah, Nelson.
I'm gonna
All right.
stop playing.
So my power is back. Can you please
Winner.
message us with your email address, and we'll get that gift card over to you. Unless you're a presenter or someone on the lead team, in which case C would be second place. So awesome, great job.
Good
Thanks for
question,
playing,
John.
everybody.
That was fun.
That's awesome.
It's always fun.
Anna, you want to introduce our final speaker of the day?
Yes. Here we go, Joe. I don't know if you want to bring your video up and say hi to everybody. Joe is a developer with more than 30 years of professional application development experience, but he also is the VP of Emerging Technology at OSI. Can you tell me how to say it correctly again?
OSI.
OSI. I'm sorry. I knew I was saying it wrong every time I say it.
No problem.
But he talk about an engaging guy, right? He trains, and he's going to talk about how to well, I'll let you introduce yourself some more there, but how to know when it's time to train online and what you need to know before you move your Tableau training online. He understands software methodologies and development techniques. He has an extensive background in non-traditional development. He is a recognized industry thought leader and continues to break new ground in agile, mobile development, and business intelligence. So this is not just a guy who knows Tableau. This is a guy that knows the things, right?
Well, that's, at least that's what marketing says. Let me share my screen here for you. Can you guys see my screen now? Anna, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see it?
You're good.
Right, perfect.
Go for it.
All right, good deal. So as Anna said, my name's Joe Schulz, and I'm training evangelist at OSI. I'm here to talk about how to move Tableau training online. So usually when I'm talking about this stuff, I'm talking to trainers, to professional trainers. And I know that a lot of you guys are practitioners and consultants and things like that too. So what I've tried to do is tailor this presentation to focus specifically on things that, are more relevant to, like informal lunch and learn sessions or team training or something like that. Maybe if you had to teach some of your coworkers how to use a Tableau dashboard that you just built for them, for example. So hopefully it'll be interesting to everybody, not just to trainers in the crowd. And I do have some experience in this area, and I went through that kind of marketing blur. But the point is I've been a certified Tableau trainer for a long time. And I've taught literally hundreds of Tableau desktop classes all over the country. And those classes were almost all in person. At the very beginning, that's all I ever did was in person. But now, of course, they're all online in the last 6 months. So I do have to do a little bit of practicing what I preach. Also, I was told by my marketing team that I've got to include one fun fact about myself. So I'll just mention that I went to college at 15 and got my first degree from Notre Dame at 18. So the reason I tell you this is because I know you're thinking to yourself right now, man, how could he have so much experience and be so good looking and be so young in his picture, right? That's what you're thinking. That's because I got an early start. Actually that joke used to work a lot better too when I still had hair and I didn't wear the reading glasses, but oh well, what can you do? And by the way, I did say Notre Dame. So I know all of you Georgia and Georgia Tech grads are going to go ahead and log off now because you won't listen to anything I say since you found that out. For those of you that might know him, in fact, the founder of our company is Nick Cavadellis, and Nick's a Tech grad himself. So I'm very used to his SEC football jokes about Notre Dame. Trust me. And to make matters worse, in fact, I spent most of my life in St. Louis. So it's even worse now the last few years because Missouri's joined the SEC and they're not doing well if you've been following football at all. Anyway, all right, so enough of that foolishness. Let's talk about training. If you're like me, for most of your career, when you've been doing training, it's been in person, right? Whether it's formal or informal, you've been in a room where you can see and interact with your students. I started life myself as a university professor teaching in a classroom, right, filled with students. And then later I moved to commercial software training, and the location might change. So now instead of a classroom, it's a conference room or a cubicle pod. But I can still look everybody in the eye and see who's paying attention, see who's got questions, or who just needs a break, right? And in that kind of delivery, the tools of the trade, right, are things like whiteboards and projectors and flip charts. You know, I use a lot of props when I train because I think that drawing pictures helps people understand what I'm explaining. I've drawn that Tableau architecture diagram so many times on the whiteboard that my wife says I whisper about data sets and extracts in my sleep. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. You know, and of course, when I first started teaching, there was no such thing as web conferencing. So the very first class I ever put together was on transparencies on an old-fashioned light projector. So any of you out there old enough to remember overhead projectors? Here, for those of you that never had the pleasure, you know, here's an example of one. Very high tech back in the day. Maybe, hopefully, there's some of you that are old enough like me to remember that. Let me move on here. There we go. And at any rate, you know, in an in-person model like that, when you're walking around the room, you know, at the head of the classroom, I often refer to it as feeling like the king of the forest, right? We rule the room. We wander around, tell jokes, draw pictures, and you can gauge comprehension in real time, you know, by looking at your students, looking at them in the eye, seeing who's paying attention, who's getting up, walking out. And then, of course, surprise, COVID comes along. You know, overnight we went from king of the forest to deer in the headlights, right? You know, suddenly we can't teach in person at all. Instead, we're all using virtual delivery with the attendees attending from home. You know, you can't see anybody anymore. You can't see what they're doing, and you can't tell whether anybody's following along. So, you know, I mean, I don't mean to make it sound like this was all a surprise. I mean, some people have been using virtual training for a long time, right? Tableau's had virtual classes for a number of years. University of Phoenix has been out there for 30 years, right? So I don't mean that it was a complete surprise, but studies will show you that prior to COVID, less than 10% of training was delivered remotely. Now it's upwards of 70%. So for most of us, it's completely turned this software training world upside down, right? And so people are trying to adapt to this. Again, whether it's formal training or just informal training. You're used to doing a lunch and learn in the coffee room with your colleagues once a month. You know, now that's all being done online. And so in a world like this, our venue now is a home office rather than a classroom. You know, we might be lucky enough to have a dedicated desk with dual monitors, but just as often I see people working from, you know, a little spot they've nabbed on the kitchen table. So you just never know where you're going to be working from. And our new tools of the trade are things like webcams and headsets and speakerphones. You know, we use web conferencing software like WebEx or Zoom. And if we're lucky, we get to use video to watch the students and kind of gauge reactions. But most of the time, I find people, even if they are at home and have a webcam, they don't like to turn them on, you know, primarily because it means they have to dress up, right? So, you know, how many of you have cheated a bit? How many of you are willing to admit you cheated a bit and kind of thrown on a dress shirt at the last minute, right? Does this look familiar? You know, in today's home office culture, business casual often means business on top and casual below. So, and don't ask me what I look like right now because I'm not going to admit to anything. I'm not going to own it. So anyway, if you're like me, this is about where you start wondering, you know, well, how do I do training online? How can I take my material that was designed for in-person delivery and still deliver a fun class, right, using the web? Well, luckily for me, my company started thinking about this a long time ago, well before anybody had ever heard of COVID. So we started putting techniques together to help us convert our in-person training to virtual. We tried to use cloud resources wherever we could to make it cheap. And then we had to develop, of course, some software that I would need as an instructor. And around that time, I started putting together kind of a patchwork of ideas, best practices, tips and tricks that I borrowed from a lot of different people. And over the time, I've kind of distilled these into a repeatable pattern. As I've said before, my specialty is software training. So most of my ideas focus on training for a software package, with some instructor-led content and some hands-on practice. And if you've ever taken one of Tableau's official courses, that's exactly the way Tableau does all of their training, right? It's little sections of content, and then you do a practice with some starter workbooks. Now, one other thing I'll mention today is, keep in mind that what I'm talking about is just part of a much larger presentation. So what I've tried to do is hone this down to things for this users group that focus on tips for Tableau training specifically. And I'll talk about what you need to know before you start teaching the class primarily. I've got a bunch of other suggestions that I often talk about, what to do during class and things to do after the class too. But I'm going to focus on just kind of that prep part of the world. So let's dive right into the first one. First and most important is to tailor the materials for online delivery, of course, right? Now, I know what you're thinking, right? You're thinking, well, that's a given, right? You have to. But trust me, I couldn't tell you how many online courses that I've attended where they're nothing more than a big, long WebEx slideshow. So people put their instructor slides and just spew for an hour. And, now I'm not saying you have to rewrite your entire course, but there's definitely some things you have to consider that you wouldn't in a physical setting. So, for example, I think it's imperative to have hands-on practice. I think that's important in an in-person class too, but particularly for online, it keeps the students engaged. And as I mentioned, Tableau thinks this as well because all of their courses are built this way, both in-person and virtual. I've always used what I call a, say, show, do method. That's what I was taught when I first started teaching. You say what you need to say, you show an example of it, and then you have the students do it themselves. Just the other day, I was on with a customer, and I heard them talk about I do, we do, you do. And I thought that was kind of a cool way to say it too. The whole point is you're practicing what you preach, and you're giving students a chance to remember, to burn it into their head. So you've got to be able to do that. And I don't care if you're talking about a 25-minute seminar, where web and lunch and learn, where you're going to show somebody how to use Tableau, or if you're talking about a formal class, I think it's important. I also think that online classes need to be broken up into much smaller sections. So I might be able to keep a student's attention for an hour, but when I'm teaching online, it's more like 15 minutes, 20 minutes at the most. So when I'm standing in front of them, it could be an hour, but not so much, online. And remember when I said I like to draw a lot? For me, at least, drawing live on the computer screen is difficult. I mean, using the mouse is a nightmare. If I try and use my stylus, it's a little bit better, but I'm a terrible drawer to begin with. So most of my drawing ends up like some, finger painting project from preschool. So what I've done is I've created animated PowerPoint slides for every drawing I would do in the classroom. One of the very first things I did after I got my Tableau certification to train was to build a PowerPoint version of the Tableau architecture slide that builds upon itself. And I've shown that thing, I couldn't tell you how many hundreds of times. And as you can see, I like to use pictures and videos and things like that as well. We don't have time for a lot of video and interaction today because we're kind of honing this down to a 20-minute presentation. But the whole point is, as an instructor, I should know my topic well enough that I don't need these detailed word slides. There's nothing more boring than a presenter that just reads bullets word for word for word. We all fall asleep. So instead, the slides need to have just enough detail to remind me where I'm going, and the rest of the room should be, videos and graphics and things like that to keep people's attention. I also like to stop for feedback as often as I can. Of course, it can become tedious if I keep asking, do you have any questions? Do you have any questions? Do you have any questions? So I try and use whatever the online learning platform has, things like emoticons, chat window, and online polls. You guys are doing a great job right now, for example, of using the chat window, keeping things interactive, which is great. And we've got some co-presenters as well, which is always a great technique to get feedback. You can have other people asking questions and answering questions through the chat as well, so that it's not all on just you presenting. And then finally, don't forget to plan in breaks. You know, as I said earlier, students need more breaks during an online class than they would in person. It's just more tiring to stare at a monitor than to watch a living person. And when students are sitting in front of you, of course, you can see what they're doing. You can see if they're getting restless, if people are getting up to go to the bathroom. But you can't do that online often. So you need to plan for breaks more frequently, and maybe even time them with those practices, those hands-on examples that I talked about earlier. Okay, so then once your material's ready to go, the next thing is to find a technology. And this is often the hard part for a lot of people. And the funny part that I find is that most people never really look officially for a technology. Instead, they just start using whatever they have on hand and kind of live with the limitations. And I don't know, you know, that might be your only choice too. Maybe you don't have the luxury of looking at tools. But if you do get a chance to look at something new, you might want to keep these kinds of requirements in mind. So first and foremost, you know, you have to be able to broadcast your audio and computer screen to the students. I mean, that's a given, of course. So for most people, web meeting packages like the Zoom meeting we're using today is a great choice. You know, it's got built-in audio, it's got built-in video, it has chat facilities, you've got some emoticons and things like that. So these tools are great, and I use Zoom practically every day myself. But keep in mind they were designed for meetings primarily and not for training. So there's going to be some other things that you're going to need that they probably won't have. So you need to look at the tools to either augment, you know, supplement them, or to replace them in some cases. For example, I talked about how hands-on practice is critical. So that means that you're going to need an area for students to play with the software. You know, every student's going to need a working copy of the software for themselves. And a lot of people will handle this by asking the student to bring their laptop to class. You know, when I do Tableau training in a company where we're teaching for one organization, a lot of times they'll bring their own machines to class. And this should work in theory, but, you know, keep in mind that not everybody does their homework, and people will come without the software installed, without the exercise files, or they'll come with an old version because they've never upgraded their machine. And so you end up losing a lot of class time just getting everybody set up. And so the good news is that there's a whole new class of tools that provides remote classrooms with this software installed. Oracy Labs, developed by my company, is just one of many products in this space, and we were not the first in the area, right? So tools like this give you dedicated labs for each student so that everybody has the right software installed. And these sandboxes, you know, run in the cloud generally, and they're much cheaper than buying physical hardware. So it makes it really easy to start a new class because you've got everything you need right there in one place, and the students don't have to do any pre-work to get ready. Coupled with that, then, another critical feature is instructor monitoring. So as the instructor, I need to be able to see all of the students' screens while they're working. So, you know, this is just like me as an instructor, wandering around the room, peeking over people's shoulders to see how things are going. I like to bring up a grid of the screens, you know, on my machine in real time so that I can watch as they complete the task. I might use this to adjust my pace. So if I'm teaching, you know, teach faster or slower, depending on how people follow along. Or I might use it to see if anybody's having trouble, if they've made a mistake or they've got stuck. Now, as I said earlier, you might be able to do some of this with Zoom or WebEx too, but there's limitations, like you can only see one screen at a time. The instructor has to stop to let the student share. You might even have to deal with privacy issues. So a dedicated monitoring tool is generally better. And for some people, you might even need the tool to support multiple training styles, right? So at a minimum, you need instructor-led courses like I've been talking about. But you might also want to introduce self-paced classes too. You might want to let the students take training on their own schedule. That'll give you some different ways for students to consume things and increase adoption overall. Now, one note I'll mention about all of this, of course, is that you're probably going to need some sort of dual monitor setup to make this work. So you're going to need one monitor to open up your lab and your students can watch from, and then you're going to need another monitor where you can keep up with what the students are doing to monitor what they're doing. You might be able to do the same thing with a single monitor, of course, if it's large enough to support multiple windows and you can put them side by side and all that. But I like to use dual monitors so I can broadcast the one that has my sandbox on it, and then I can not broadcast the one that has all the student screens. So they can't see each other, but they can see me. Regardless, the idea is you need to keep an eye on your students without having to constantly ask if they're keeping up. Now, I'll just show you a real quick example of how this would work. So, it's going to be different in every tool, but like in a tool like ORC Labs, the idea is you first start by building a virtual image. So this is where you install whatever the student needs. This is the gold image or gold master, whatever you want to call it. For Tableau training, this would mean this is where you put the Tableau desktop. You might even add a browser to access Tableau server, and you'll add all the starter workbooks that they need for practices. It's just like setting up the first machine in a physical classroom. If you've ever taught for Tableau, they have third-party companies that set all this stuff up for you. If you've done it yourself, then you've had to go through and build all these machines yourself. You might even need to set up Tableau server in a template too. So you might need multiple templates. In a desktop class, you'd want the students to have desktop, but you'd want one Tableau server that's shared across the whole class. For a Tableau server class, though, you'd probably put the Tableau server class right in the student sandbox. That way, everybody has their own copy to play with. So no matter how you do it, the point is you're building this template or multiple templates to become the master image that you use to create everything else in the lab. The second step then is to actually create the class. And the class, of course, is nothing more than a bunch of students, roster of emails or however you do it. You add the students to the class, you associate that to a template, and then you create the class, which will actually send out all the invitations and track participation. And then finally, at least with ORC Labs as an example, when you're ready to start teaching, you just press the big green Start Class button, which delivers the class. So the tool then will create all of the dedicated labs, those things I've been calling sandboxes, for every participant, every student, and every instructor. The instructor would use their lab to teach, and the students use their lab to practice and play with the software. Again, this is exactly what you would do in a physical classroom. The difference, of course, is that the students could be thousands of miles apart, and they're sitting in their kitchen, at the table in a bathrobe, for all you know, right? I mean, the students don't need any software on their personal machine either, so you don't have to worry about them installing anything. They don't need any VPN software. You don't have to worry about Tableau licenses expiring or any of that kind of stuff. So it's an easy way to deploy this to whether it's 2 students or 200 students. The students then, on their side, they see an email with a link, much like a Zoom or WebEx, and then they press the Join Class button, which lets them open up the lab right in their browser. If you're teaching on Tableau Desktop, they'll have Tableau Desktop then running right in their browser. If you're teaching server, they might see multiple, one with the desktop and one with the server, and they can switch back and forth. Now, one note I'll make, I keep using instructor and student, but, again, keep in mind, if you're doing a lunch and learn with your coworkers, it's the same, kind of concept. So, spice it up, right? Have an hands-on lab for them to use. One of the very first classes I took for Tableau, the instructor had a Simpsons data set. So he liked the Simpsons cartoon, and he had a data set that showed how many donuts each character ate in each episode. And we used that data set then to learn custom mapping, to plot out the data, and have the size of the objects plotted onto a fictional map of Springfield. So that's obviously a sample I never forgot because of that one 5-minute exercise. So adding something unique like that makes it memorable for the students. And then finally, you got a monitor. So as I mentioned, the instructor needs to be able to see the students. So I need to be able to watch them in real time while I'm teaching, as well as while they're doing their labs. And if I need to, I might even be able to take over the control of their machine so that I can help them out if they make a mistake. And then the last tip I'll share with you today is, once you've selected your training platform, don't forget to practice. So we create what I call an open house beforehand. It's just kind of an online event where you let the students come in, you make it a fun thing, make it I don't know, happy hour where you offer, everybody brings a glass of wine or something, like that. I mean, spacing out over a couple of hours lets the students come in and out at their own convenience, and you just make sure everybody understands the technology. Might seem like a waste of time, but I've seen a lot of class time wasted because the students don't even know how to get started. So this helps kind of get over that hump. So there you go. Just a few tips for moving your Tableau training online. Tailor the material, look for an online learning technology that can support these hands-on labs that are critical, provides real-time monitoring, and then finally use an open house to orient them. And of course, when you look at all this, it sounds like simple, plain old common sense, right? And it is. I mean, I'm not going to lie and say I invented any of these techniques, but you'd be shocked, I'm sure, at how many of these simple ideas get overlooked by people when they're rushed to get online. When COVID hit and we all went online, a lot of people just started spewing on the web with, online PowerPoints. So I hope today I gave you some ideas to think about, some food for thought, some examples that you could apply in your world. And as I mentioned, this is just the small part of a larger presentation. So if you're interested in hearing any more, just let me know. In fact, I'll put up my contact information here in this last slide. Feel free to email me or go to our website and ask questions electronically. You can throw things in the chat as well. They'll send me a copy of the chat after the session, and I can answer questions offline too. So at this point, I guess I'll turn it back open to questions and turn it back over to either Anna or Nathan or somebody.
Hey, Joe, that was awesome, man. Really appreciate you sharing. And I think there's a ton of stuff in there that's just helpful. And hold on, let's make sure that I'm actually sharing the screen. Whoops. Hold on. I think I may have jumped the gun.
I was getting really excited about those talking points, Joe. As you know, we talked earlier. We talked offline and earlier a couple months ago, and I do virtual training now. And just yes, your talking points, the shorter sessions, and people can't just sit there in front of the screen. And the engagement, as much as you can try to be engaged, I use the emoticons too. Like, give me a green check if you're with me. Give me a red X if you need that repeated. And just, but people, it's almost harder sometimes to just be stuck in front of like two screens. So I like to give a break every hour, just whether it's 5 or 15, they're getting breaks and breaks and breaks. And also that time, like you said, to work out the problem on their own. We really learn by struggle, right? So struggling through the process and figuring it out on our own to do that practice problem is helpful. Some people, let's see if anyone has any questions here. We're going to open it up for questions.
Somebody says they don't turn on their camera and just go with the road. So I've been guilty of that myself, I'm afraid. But.
I love that.
Yeah.
Anthony's our comedian, if you haven't met Anthony yet. I also loved the overhead projector. You get the I like to write with the blue one when I taught, and it would just get all down my arm.
Exactly. I have that problem with whiteboards even in there as well.
Oh yeah. I felt bad for left-handed people because it's just worse. Let's see. Let's get some questions going. Let's see if anyone.
I feel bad that I couldn't have as much feedback in this session. I just gave a presentation on Tuesday to a national audience. It was a little bit longer, and so I tried to put some games in and stuff like that. I wasn't quite sure how much time we were going to have today, so I didn't put a lot of stuff in there. So, I'll owe you a bottle of wine or something, for the contest.
No, you're very engaging. You have a great presence. I like it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, awesome, y'all.
So, if anyone has questions on whether you're going to move your team to virtual training or if it's even virtual meetings, as you said, a lunch and learn. It sounds like you've got so much experience in that. I've honestly had to learn the virtual side since March, and I've taught a lot virtually since March, but I don't think I could have presented on this before any of this. There's no way. So I'm used to in person.
Tableau's done a great job at enabling their trainers. So, I've been a Tableau trainer for a long time, and Tableau's released a, virtual enablement kind of session for all of us since March. They've been actively doing that. So they've done a great job at converting a lot of this to virtual. but not everybody has. I mean, there's a lot of companies who do Tableau training that are still, they're just taking their PowerPoints and throwing them up online, and that's all you see is a PowerPoint for 8 hours a day, which is, I mean, even if I'd fall asleep as an instructor doing that, much less as a student.
Let me ask you a question. Then we have a few questions here. Do you have an optimal number for people to train if you're training Tableau? And let's say people have dual monitors. So let's get that out of the way. We've got dual monitors. Everyone's got a mouse. They've got it all installed. We've got all those problems out of the way. What's the optimal number of people in a training course for Tableau?
That's a good question. When I teach online, Tableau's policy, right, is 12 to 15 at a max is what they say. But I've taught Tableau classes with 20 people in the room, and that's really tough to do, even in person. I mean, I think 12 is more like a kind of a practical max in person. Online, it can even be smaller because questions take longer, and I have a harder time following them. So what we usually say is that an instructor can keep up with about 6 to 10 students in the grid view, in the online view, realistically. So like a lot of our customers will have classes. We just had a hospital that did a bunch of training. They had up to 100 people in a classroom at a time. And so what they did then is they put 5 and 6 and 7 co-instructors watching different sets of students. So each person only had to watch 15, maybe a dozen at most, kind of students. So usually, in my opinion, it's kind of 10 is kind of the theoretical max that I can try and keep up with.
Yeah, and of course, sometimes it depends on the trainer. There's I'm kind of going out of order here. Someone said, any insights or research on the effectiveness of online versus in-person training when done correctly? And of course, I think this depends on the trainer. What do you think?
Yeah, that definitely depends upon the trainer and the materials, the way they've been adapted as well. Generally speaking, online training is less effective than in-person. Retention's a lot higher. So the average I've seen is that in-person training is about twice as effective as online. But online can vary. I mentioned in my presentation, in fact, I got some studies that show in early COVID days, retention was like down at 10%. So everybody was just throwing their classes online. People were taking a class and they didn't remember more than 10% of what they saw. But, if you do it right and you do hands-on exercise and you do all this feedback and stuff like that, it can be up to 70%, which is approaching, an in-person class. So if it's done well, it can be as good as in-person, but most virtual training is not done as well, right?
It's hard, especially beginning of COVID when everyone was distracted. That was probably a key thing there too.
Exactly.
Rich asks, his workplace has a weird resistance to internal training, by the way. It's not weird, it's common, right? Do you have any tips on how to overcome that?
I like to, I mentioned a couple times lunch and learn. I like to do things off hours. Then the company is less likely to complain, but you got to make it fun or else the employees aren't going to want to spend their off time doing this stuff, right? So that's one thing I like to do is I like to do a lot of lunch and learns. I do a lot of little half-hour things. When we're in person, of course, I incent people by buying the pizza, and that gets them to show up, right? They get a free lunch if they show up.
Pizza always works.
Yeah. Cost me $20 or $30 to order.
Come help me move, or you're going to learn something. Either way, free pizza.
Yeah, exactly. That's harder to do in a virtual world, of course, because then, my company started doing things like we'll literally mail everybody a bottle of wine, and then we do an online happy hour.
Nice.
So it costs a little bit more though, because now you got to buy a bottle of wine and you got to ship it to everybody. So you got to have some
virtual candy.
There you go. That's a good idea.
I learned this from Emily Kunz. She gives out virtual candy in her classes. She's runs a Tableau podcast. But I started doing that, and people love virtual candy because there's no calories.
There you go. Oh, so there really isn't any candy. It's literally virtual.
It's whatever you want it to be. You want Halloween candy? Here you go. You get virtual candy. They think it's fun, or they just laugh along with me or laugh at me. Whatever. Yeah. It works. It works. Incentives, right? Bragging rights. Kahoot is a great way to engage people. I use that a lot. Have you tried that?
Yes, I have, and I love that. I mean, I watched your guys' little quiz there, and that's awesome. Especially because people can be anonymous. They can put in there, Captain Fizzlepants or whatever, and they don't have to admit when they make mistakes.
Exactly. It's good.
Yeah.
It's good. So do you have any advice? I know you just gave us advice for online training. Do you have any advice for, you just said the lunch and learn, but for people who want maybe not their whole organization, but their groups to be able to move forwards in step of, and like an on-premises training, maybe if it is during the day, but well, let me rephrase that, on premises or virtual, because now we don't know what that world's going to be like. But if they're going to move towards training, what's the best first step for looking for the best trainers or the best type of organization to do that work? Should they go through Tableau? How does that work?
Boy, that's a tough one. I mean, you guys are obviously in the Atlanta market, so there's a lot of trainers in the Atlanta market. There's a bunch of consulting companies that do it. My recommendation, of course, always to people when they ask me about getting like a consultant, I'll teach a Tableau class. Most of my training is done through Tableau. So I teach for Tableau.
Okay.
Some of you guys do as well. And so what I usually tell people is look for certifications first, right? I mean, people laugh about those certifications, but they're there for a reason. When I see somebody's a Tableau, certified professional, that means something. If I see a Zen master, forget it. I mean, they're light years ahead of me. I'll let them do anything. I'll hire them to do anything. So certifications are a big one. The other thing I would recommend is talking to your Tableau reps, the Tableau reps in your area, both technical and sales reps. They know who the good people are and who the bad people are. So they're a good sounding board. You got to be careful because sometimes they're getting, freebies on the side too. So, it's like watching reviews online. Everybody's opinions sometimes are colored by relationships and incentives, but nonetheless, they're good resources to draw from, I think.
Well, great. It looks like we got a lot out of this, and we've had just such a great time talking to you and talking about conference. Nelson, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think as we wrap up, y'all, just one more shout out to the fact that we've got our last ATUG of the year coming up on December 10th. As we talked about, it's going to be one you don't want to miss. We got a big planning session to get everybody looped in for Tableau 2021. Man, fingers crossed that we all get to be back in person at some point in the near future in 2021. I look forward to that happening. And then, of course, y'all, we can't leave today without just big thank yous that go out to everybody who helps make this thing happen. Didn't have Karen today, but Karen's such a big part of what we do every month. And then, of course, Taran, all the YouTube stuff, keeping us historically relevant up on YouTube. So everything that's there. Nathan, of course, with the Kahoot sorcerization that you got going on, all the folks at Tableau, Alyssa, Jordan, Rasta, and of course, in the background, pulling all the strings and making sure everybody's in the right place at the right time, Jen Lisborg.
Oh, Jen's taking care of all of us.
Absolutely. Y'all, really, really appreciate everybody for hanging out with us this afternoon. Hopefully you learned something. And then we look forward to everybody being back on December. So, and anything else?
No, I appreciate Joe. Thank you for your time, Joe. Nathan, thanks for joining us from wherever he is. Maybe we'll start playing a game of Where is Nathan? Yeah, I'm looking forward to next month, talking data literacy.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. Thanks, y'all. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, y'all. Y'all have a great day. Great weekend. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.